Welcome back to another episode of Brotherhood Blitz. I'm your host, D. Wap, here with my brother 409K.
What's up? We had a crazy week six with a ton of upsets, and going into week seven, every game's gonna count and must win for a lot of teams.
Yeah, a lot of must-win games coming up for some teams, and like you said, yeah, a huge upset week. Um, you know, a lot more upsets than we had in that previous big upset week we had earlier in the season. But I believe we had five upsets, 4 or 5 upsets this past week. It's crazy.
You can consider five upsets in the possible eight, well, in the eight total games we had between teams in the league. So, I mean, more than half.
Yeah, it's wild to think about, and yeah, teams came to play. They we've talked about games that they go into and have to be must-win games, and they took that seriously, game planned well, and went into those games determined, and it showed.
But we will do a quick little recap of week six, and Dylan, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, the first game of Week 6 on Tuesday, we had Hawaii upsetting Texas 40-14, and which was showing that Texas got stunned and Hawaii came out swinging, and they performed very well against a very good Texas team and took down the number one seed and earned their spot in the number one ranking spot.
Hawaii, the rankings are officially out but haven't been updated on the website. But this is the first time they'll ever be ranked one. And they gave Texas their first loss of the season. A game as a Texas head coach didn't really expect to get shown out like that. But we got to give props to Hawaii and Gunn for putting a great game plan together and pro proving the league and proving us that they're better than what they've showcased so far this season.
Absolutely, and they've gotten better over the season, and uh, this game shows it. And they're here to play, and they're serious about this playoff run this time. And it's gonna be interesting if Texas and Hawaii meet back up in the playoffs,
Definitely interesting. It's also interesting to see whether Hawaii can maintain that number one ranking.
especially how this season has gone so far. It's You never know what's gonna happen, and 3 weeks left of the regular season. You know, who knows who will have that number one spot by playoffs.
Definitely, we'll talk a bit more about it as we get later into the episode, but their schedule has a few games that aren't exactly easy.
Yeah, moving on to the next game of Week 6 on Tuesday, we had LSU versus ECU, and which was our second upset of the week. A huge upset at that, as ECU took down LSU 24-12.
Not a game I don't think a lot of people expected. It was Captain Rush's first game as head coach, the new head coach of ECU, upsetting a top five seed at the time, beating them, holding them to under 14 points is quite impressive in your debut as a coach.
Yeah, we talked about it, last episode of how this could have happened, and it did happen. And ECU with, like you said, Captain Rush coming in as head coach, first time being a head coach, at that. So congratulations to Captain Rush for getting his first win, and a big win at that. And like we said last episode, that Clemson book is very dangerous, and now a lot of eyes are on ECU and what they can do, and maybe they can sneak into the playoff spot.
And he's shown, Captain Rush has shown that okay, he can hang with the big dogs, and I know we both talked about, just the firepower and the talent difference between LSU and ECU was the reason why we both picked LSU to win that game. But time as some of these games we've seen this season, talent isn't everything. If you have a bad book or you just put in a bad game plan, you potentially get your mouth smacked and get upset, which so happened to be the case.
Yeah, and that's so happened to be the case in a lot of these games this week. As like we said, 5 upsets this week. So, you know, talent isn't everything in this league, and that's what makes this league is great. Is you really got to have a good game plan going into it.
Going on into the next game, which was last Wednesday, we had Missouri taking on Louisville, where Louisville beat Missouri 42 to 13, and in what was a must-win game for Louisville to have a shot at potentially making it into the playoffs. And Missouri couldn't quite get their first win on the season when they don't have too many shots left to try and secure their first win.
Yeah, Louisville coming out, swinging hard and putting up 42 points, even though it's Missouri. Not losing. You know, Missouri is a good team, and obviously they don't have a win this season, but still scoring 42 points in this league and only giving up 13 is still a good accomplishment. And Louisville looked good during this game, so if they can hold out, and put together 3 more wins this regular season, it's not going to be easy for them, but if they can do that, they're looking good into a good playoff run.
The only thing is that for one, Louisville has to win out, right?
Yep,
But they also have to have a little bit of help and some teams also
losing.
losing
Yeah,
that are also on the bubble. Now, like you said, Missouri, yeah, they have a great head coach in Rory. I just think the talent is young that they have, and just finding couple more superstar pieces to buy in and want to come and change the culture that Mizzou has and the way that Rui is trying to build that team. I think they can, going into the offseason, kind of, fire on all cylinders and really dive hard into recruiting. We could be looking at a very different Missouri team come season 8.
yeah, definitely. And like you said, they're young, and they're gonna come out hard in the off season and recruit some key pieces. And like you said, I believe that they will you know be a lot better team come next season.
Going into the next game, we had Miami taking on North Carolina, where North Carolina stuns Miami 54 to 31 and hand Miami their second loss on the season.
Yeah, this game, as it stunned, a lot of people. North Carolina, we talked about this game last episode and how UNC could come out and stop that Miami offense just enough. And, just like we said, it's exactly what happened in North Carolina. 54-31, and like, wow, like a lot of people did not expect that, but I believed in them. You believed in them. We had UNC.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, we both picked UNC to win against Miami too.
yeah, and yeah, UNC moving up to that third ranking spot, and now they're up there with VT, and so UNC and VT are fighting for that number 3 spot, and both teams looking for statement wins in these last 3 weeks to get a good seeding in playoffs.
You would like to think that North Carolina and VT are both going to make the playoffs, like you said, in terms of seeding wise. They both face in week 9. So, and rival week game, there potentially a lot of implications in terms of, okay, what's the road going to be like to get to a national title?
Yeah, and that's going to be one of those games that's for sure going to be game of the week. Obviously, we'll talk about it, in a few weeks when the time comes. But that UNC Virginia Tech game in Week 9, that's our first snow game of the season, and it's going to be a very interesting one.
The first and only snow game of the season, at least regular season. Obviously, we don't know what playoffs will entail in terms of what the weather will be, but snow game and the final game of the season more or less, at least that's how it's been for previous seasons. It's a much watch football. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, it can definitely be a make or break uh, weather for any team. So it's gonna be interesting, and you know, we're 3 weeks out, so who knows who's gonna win that? But it's gonna be exciting to talk about when the time comes.
Going on to the next game we have of week 6, we have FAU taking on Maryland, where Maryland, you can say it's an upset, beats FAU 23-20, and Maryland only one loss on the season. Bit underranked, might you say?
Yeah, their only one loss in the season is to, Miami, who is a great team. Um, but yeah, winning over FAU 23-20, and like you said, it was an upset as per the rankings, as FAU was ranked 7 and Maryland was ranked 8. So the lower seeding beat the higher seeding is 23-20, and a great game. Uh, very you know very tight race all the way through, and Maryland pulling that one off.
And I believe FAU missed a field goal late, which allowed Maryland to go on to win the game. It's a tough tough way to lose.
Yeah, I believe it was. I want to say it was at least 50 yard. It might have been
Yeah, so
52.
a decent long field goal in the wind too, light breeze.
Yeah, yeah, I do remember that missed field goal. Now that you say that, but yeah, that ended up being the turning point, and you know they would have went to overtime.
But things happen, and not much you can do is just try and win some more games, and especially now FAU sitting at 3-3. Every game now from here on out, you got to win them. You lose another game, then you're asking for a little bit of help from other teams that are in the bubble around you to lose.
Yeah, as we got a lot of 3-3 teams and a lot of 2-4 teams. You know, pretty much the rest of the games this season are must wins for everybody. And obviously, we're going to be saying that a lot as these next few weeks go, because it's true. You know, if you want to make playoffs, now's the chance to really string some wins together and win out.
Going on to the next game, we got Virginia Tech beating Alabama 70 to 31, and which was a game of willpower and dominance from Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech, they put on a show, and their QB almost broke some records. I want to say. I don't know if they tie the record. Their QB.
They believe they tied the passing TDs in a game, but was a little bit short of passing yards. I know they broke some school records, but without going deep diving into their personal record book, um, I don't know on that part. But they did tie the most passing touchdowns in a game, and if I'm not mistaken, they had over 400 yards before halftime passing.
Yeah, it's wild, and um, they went real conservative in that second half, and especially that fourth quarter. And I know Venom was, like begging for it in chat there that he just wanted them to throw the ball to get that record, but it just didn't happen. But still a great show to put on, scoring 70.
I believe their halfback had like quite a bit of yardage, and most of it came via the fourth quarter when they were trying to run the clock out.
Yeah, as I have it right here. Stacy Smith threw for 540 yards, 8 touchdowns, um, and 1 interception. So a great showing.
And it was a must-win game for Bama to try and make a case for the playoffs. And with the loss, you'd like to say they're mathematically eliminated. I mean, with the wins that they have and some of the bad losses they have on the resume, it'd be a tough case to make for a playoff spot.
Yeah, sitting at 1-5, their best record can be 4-5. Um, it's I wouldn't say it's mathematically impossible, but they're going to need not only they need a win out, but they're going to need a lot of other teams to lose out if
Yeah,
they
they would
want
need
to get that last playoff spot.
yeah, they would need some of the 3-3 teams to not win a game for the rest of the season. But then
Yeah,
again, with the games that they've lost already, and some of them some pretty bad losses.
yeah,
And like you said, I wouldn't necessarily, couldn't necessarily say it's mathematically eliminated, but pretty dang close.
yeah. If they lose one more, yeah, yeah, it's you can pretty much count it out at that point.
It's just hard to make a case for, let's say they went out, they'd be, what is it, 4-5?
4-5, yeah,
Yeah, at that point you would need some help. But then again, with the resume they have, it's gonna be pretty tough.
yeah. Moving on to the next game, we had Arkansas losing to Michigan 38-31, in which was another upset. As I'm not gonna lie, I thought Arkansas was gonna win that game, but you know, props to Michigan for pulling that one off against a great Arkansas team.
This is a game I also thought Arkansas was gonna have a pretty good handle on, but Michigan and Loki just somehow managed to find ways to win games when they absolutely need to win them, especially late in the season. Loki's always been known for later in the season just having these magical runs and getting a lot of momentum going into the playoffs as a low seed, and it's looking like he's on another Cinderella run to a deep playoff run with the way that they've been playing recently.
Yeah, and with that, hanging on to that win, they move up a spot actually into the ninth rank, um, as they previously were 10 in a 10-man, 10-team playoff. So they're holding on to that playoff run, and you know, sitting at 3-3. It's if they can these last remaining 3 weeks, if they can you know keep doing what they're doing and keep stringing these wins together, like you said, they can make another magical playoff run.
I definitely agree, and Arkansas now is in must-win mode to potentially be, that 10 seed, that 9th seed, probably at most. It's you got some tough games coming up, especially we'll get into it when we talk about next week's games, but next week's game is a big game that you got to win realistically.
Yeah, as they are already 2-4, so the best they can do is at the end of the regular season is 5-4. So you got you got to think that they're in win out mode.
We go into the final game of week 6. It was Georgia taking on Rutgers in a pretty close battle as Georgia was had a must-win game to even have a chance at playoffs as Rutgers wins 30-25.
Yeah, a close game, moderate wind. It was a good battle, but yeah, Georgia just couldn't pull it off against. Rutgers have been looking pretty good lately. They got the upset win against UNC a couple weeks ago. Uh, it's just like Michigan. They might be pulling together these close wins and looking to make a good playoff run.
And then with Georgia, and it was a game that they absolutely had to win. They're basically in the kind of same boat as Alabama, if not slightly worse, in terms of they haven't won a game since the season opener against ECU, and they have lost six, 5 straight.
Yeah, 5 straight. Yeah, so you know just like you said, just like Alabama, you know, I wouldn't say it's mathematically impossible, but just like Bama, they're gonna need a lot of help and a lot of other teams to lose out, and they need to win out if they even want a chance.
That concludes the week 6 recap as we go on into our next topic. And Dylan, kind of walk us through what we got coming up next.
Yeah, so first we'll do our game of the week, and yeah, my game of the week, I'm gonna have to go with that Florida Atlantic Maryland game. You know, coming down to that missed field goal, it was a great game. If you haven't seen it, I believe it's still up on Twitch. You can go rewatch it. VGL. Uh, but yeah, that was my pick for game of the week for sure.
Is also my pick for game of the week, and that'll be the Brotherhood Blitz game of the week. So congrats to FAU and Maryland for putting on a pretty entertaining game to watch.
Yeah, entertaining for sure. You know, a lot of these games, you know, another shout out to Cameron Duty for calling these games. He makes these games, you know, fantastic to watch. You know, if I got nothing going on, I'll, you know, throw it on and just have it in the background with his, you know, with him calling it and, you know, not even really watching it much. But just hearing Cameron call is it's like a talent. Like it's he calls them so well.
And even like if you watch in the background, just trying to get those channel points, even just having the volume on, and it kind of makes it feel like you're listening to it on radio for those that, you know, listen to NFL games on radio or even high school games via radio. You kind of get the same type of feeling with the way that he calls the games.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's great, and we're definitely glad to have him as you know our announcer or one of our announcers.
So that is the game of the week.
Yep.
Should we get into the hit stick play of the week? Excuse me.
Yeah, we actually got a contender this week. Thank you to Big Ant 03151 for sending this clip in. It was hit stick in the Louisville versus Mizzou game, and yeah, we'll roll the clip.
Gray with the snap, looks, throws, middle of the field. It's Trey Storm who delivers, or he's delivered a shot. He delivers on the catch, keeps the drive alive for Louisville.
Yeah, so thank you again to Big Ant 03151 for sending that clip in. Um, yeah, just a reminder if you see a big hit like that, if you're watching the game, just remember to clip it in chat and then send it via DM to me or my brother, 49K, and we'll be sure to give you a shout out and thank you and show you the clip on the podcast. So thank you again.
Going on into the next topic, which I not going to be able to do, and I'll explain why. We both got kind of got caught up this weekend. Normally, when we do record on Friday, if not Saturday, Friday was our younger brother's birthday, so my brother was busy. Saturday, he kind of celebrated a little bit more, and then by the time I got off of work and everything, it was late. Both tired. We're recording this as of right now is 12:18 on Sunday, the 8th of December. So a pretty late episode as I don't get off of work till 11. Player of the week on in your locker is already closed, so we weren't able to go over it and kind of give y'all our thoughts on it. So we apologize for that, but we won't be able to do the player of the week. At least for this episode. Next episode it'll be different, and we'll get back into it. So it's gonna cut this episode a little shorter than what we normally do.
Yeah, just but you know, just like you said, we'll be back at it next week and back to our regular scheduled program, uploading it Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time. As this one will be a little bit later, but you know, better late than never.
I definitely agree. I'd rather get an episode out than not one at all.
Yeah, so we'll move on to our week 7 of season 7, and yeah, if you want to talk us through our first game.
Yeah, the first game on Tuesday will be Rutgers taking on Miami, in which Rutgers has a chance to continue to make a case for a playoff run and get another big quality win on their books, or while Miami continue to bounce back after an upset against UNC.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, just because you know I wouldn't count Rutgers off. Rutgers upset UNC, like we said earlier, a few weeks ago, and UNC just upset Miami. So anything can happen in this game, but I think Miami coming off that loss this past week, I think they're going to come back and bounce back and take this game over Rutgers.
I'm also gonna pick Miami to win this game. Now, I think it has potential if Miami doesn't stay on top of their stuff and kind of dominate the time of possession. Rutgers can probably easily upset this game.
Going on to the next game, we have Louisville traveling to Texas to take on Texas. Yeah, give me a little bit of your thoughts on that game.
Just going to quickly give my thoughts and my take on this game. You know, being the head coach of Texas, not going to go too much into it to eliminate bias. Biased thoughts, but Louisville is a game they absolutely have to win to have a shot at playoffs. Texas coming off a pretty big loss to Hawaii. It's a game that we're absolutely, trying to bounce back from and show why we deserve to be a top team in the league.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you said, Louisville's coming in, very motivated as they need to win this game, and Texas is coming in very motivated to, show the league that, they deserve to be a top three team in the league. So it's an interesting game, but obviously, we like to not be biased, but I do have Texas winning this game.
Also, do have Texas winning this game just to, have a pick.
Going on to the next game, we have Mizzou taking on LSU, in which LSU coming off a loss, and Mizzou still looking to get their first win. It's going to be a pretty good game, but I do think LSU is going to take this one.
I'm gonna get that out of the way. I do think LSU is going to win this game now. With Mizzou being eliminated, from making the playoffs out of with no really viable shot of making it, with no losses, with no wins currently, uh, really have nothing to lose. We can see some crazy type of game plan from Rudy, especially with it being in a new playbook now and kind of shaking some things up and playing, villain to some of these teams that absolutely have to win, like LSU, 3-3. You get a loss here, now you're 3-4. 2 weeks left. You got to win at least one of the next two to even have a shot. Really, you win one, you might have, you might still clinch. A lot of things can happen. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. LSU's really got to be careful here. Is like you said, Mizzou has nothing to lose. So, and LSU, if they lose this game, going dropping to 3-4, and one of those four losses is to Mizzou, yeah, they got to be very careful here. And this is definitely a must win for LSU here.
It can also be considered a trap game too, and you kind of overlook Mizzou, and the next thing you know, you're on the back end of Mizzou's first win on the season, and when you're trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Moving on to the next game of second game of the Wednesday slate as Hawaii takes on Arkansas, in which is going to be, I think it's going to be a, a better game than people think.
I do definitely think that this is my pick for game of the week, in which Arkansas must win. You're 2-4. You got to win out at this point. And why you just upset the number one team in the league and gave them their first loss last week. Both these head coaches are very experienced and very well known in the sim league space. I have Arkansas winning this game.
That's interesting you say that because I also have Arkansas winning this game. And, like you said, both these head coaches, well known, and, they've played each other for a lot of years. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen, but it's going to be a great game. And like we both said, you know, I think Arkansas is going to, do just enough to win this game.
Both these head coaches also know each other in the way they game plan, so it's also another level to look at in terms of you can't really even look at the talent of both these teams and what they've done. This is more just a battle of head coaches and really a chess game to, okay, what type of game plan can I put out that I know is going to stop the other team?
Yeah, usually, you look at a game and you think, okay, who's the better team here? And, you pick a game from that. But this is one of those games that you really can't look at that. You got to look at the coach and you got to see, you got to think who's going to outcoach who. And it's going to be a very interesting game to watch. And I believe you said this is going to be your game of the week. And I agree. This is also going to be my game of the week. I'm very excited for that game.
And going on into the next game on Wednesday, the last game for Wednesday, it'll be Virginia Tech taking on Maryland, with both teams only having one loss in the season, kind of just fighting for playoff positioning now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maryland is coming off of a small upset win, but an upset win nonetheless against FAU. Um, looking to keep their only one loss, keep it at one, and bring down another one loss team in Virginia Tech. And I think this is going to be a very high scoring game. And I know for sure Virginia Tech is probably going to put up a lot of points. The question is, can Maryland keep up?
Well, recently, VT, this defense, obviously they've put up a lot of points, but they've also given up more points than they probably should, being the quality of and caliber of team that they are. Um, Now, Maryland has proved that a lot of people and doubters wrong that, okay, we deserve to be higher ranked than we currently are. And, they have one pretty quality win on the books in terms of beating FAU. Can you get another quality win and really, cement yourself as a top five team in this league?
Yeah, it's a very good test for Maryland, and you know, it's a great chance to prove the league, like you said, to prove at the league that win against you know FAU uh you know wasn't a fluke, and they can really they deserve to be a top team in the league.
Yeah, so who do you have winning this game?
Hmm, it's I have this game. It could go either way, but I do think Virginia Tech's gonna outscore Maryland here. But like I said, I think it is going to be a high scoring game.
Give me them Terrapins.
Interesting, interesting. I
More or less, I kind of want to hear Venom yell at me.
yeah, it's
Because I know he's probably gonna say something, but I do there's bits and pieces of me thinking that yeah, VT is gonna win this game, but just for pure, you know, what's the word am I thinking of? Whatever the word is, yeah, some of you might know what I'm saying. I'm gonna pick Maryland. Yeah, they have a shot at winning. Will they win? Probably, probably not. We'll find out.
yeah. I definitely could see a point to where they could pull this game off, but I think Virginia Tech's just going to score a little bit quicker than Maryland, and I just don't think Maryland can keep up. But you know, they can definitely prove me wrong here, and really make a statement in the league.
On to the first game for Thursday, North Carolina taking on Bama, and I have North Carolina winning this game.
Yeah, this is, you know, especially how UNC has looked these past few weeks. Um, especially after that upset they had with Rutgers. Um, they've kind of been on a roll here. So, uh, taking on Alabama. Yeah. Yeah. UNC is going to be winning this game, and I don't think it's going to be close.
I would have UNC winning by more than 3, 4 scores, and it sucks for Bama because this is the game they absolutely have to win to have a shot at the playoffs. You just bad draw of schedule, and especially you haven't performed the way you've needed to, uh, for the first 6 weeks of the season. This is a tough game to try and go in and win.
Yeah, it's, as my hot take of the season at the beginning of the season, I had Alabama, going to playoffs, but, you know, that that hot take is dwindling as the weeks go on. But
That hot take sailed like 3 weeks ago.
yeah, hey, so did yours. So
Yeah, mine sailed ages ago too, sadly. But besides the point.
yeah, but like I said, UNC taking on Alabama, and UNC is going to be taking that one. Uh, but going on to the next game, we have Michigan taking on ECU, and which is going to be my pick for sleeper game of the week. I think this game is going to be very good.
Also agree.
Yeah, ECU coming off a big upset win over LSU. Like we said, we talked about it earlier in this episode, and talked a little bit about it last episode with ECU coming in with a new playbook as Clemson is their playbook, and um, that seemed like they found, Captain Rush found what that book is capable of against LSU, and I think they're going to build off of that against Michigan. I'm going to have another upset here with ECU pulling that one off.
I think this is going to be a game of game plans because Michigan is known for their very pass heavy, pass happy attack and kind of just scoring, at will, very quick, forcing you to keep up with their pace and controlling, the pace of the game. But if ECU can get a few crucial stops, get some turnovers, which Michigan has had some trouble with in the last few weeks, I think they will score a little bit more and control the time of possession with their run game that it can quite be possible that Michigan just doesn't have the time to come back. So I am also going to pick ECU to upset Michigan.
Yeah, this game could get real interesting real quick.
Also get ugly very quick with it being light rain and a light breeze.
Yeah, which actually might hurt Michigan.
We shall see, though. But going into the final game of Week 6, we got Georgia taking on FAU, in which I don't want to say Georgia is out of it, but a loss here definitely puts them out of it.
Yeah, definitely puts them out of it. It's also a must-win for FAU as well, as they are now 3-3 on the season, and barely holding on to one of those last playoff spots. So they definitely need a win here as well, as both teams do.
And then I have FAU winning this game. Georgia haven't looked great the past weeks. Obviously, they only lost by 5 to Rutgers, but uh, the, to even have a shot at making playoffs and even making a deep playoff run, offense got to perform a little bit better than they have recently. And I think FAU is going to bounce back. They're in a new playbook. Don't playbook they're in, but different than what they've been running. So I have FAU winning this game.
Website
Or
says
in Louisville.
Louisville. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think FAU is gonna win this one over Georgia, but you know it's always very dangerous. Changing playbooks. especially this late in the season. So, it's question is, does Vex know that playbook? Because if not, and he's just now testing numbers, and this game, you know, could get ugly quick.
Well, he's also has had about a week to really game plan and test, so it's also going to help them if they make playoffs. They don't. It's not a lot of tape to go off of either, so we'll see.
Yep, we will see for sure.
We'll do it for this episode. A little bit shorter, just a lot of stuff we weren't able to go off of, especially with how late we're doing this episode and with it being almost 1 a.m. Uh, we appreciate all those that listen and on YouTube and go on, and we thank Vex and Gates for putting us putting the podcast on the website. Allows more people to know we post it because obviously it can get lost in community content. But we will come back in for another episode that comes out next Sunday, and this is the Brotherhood Blitz.